will say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. All right. Let us continue the transmission. This time, this segment titled Ringing the Bell. We are talking about the idea of Bell Rock, the center of the vortex, and why our ship is positioned above that. This vortex is connected to many others that form kind of a semicircle around it, spreading out across the lower southwest and to the west of your North American continent. But the Sedona vortex being the one that we are adding our energy to help balance out the energy of transformation, to make it smoother and easier for you to transform within the vortex, to use the vortex in more positive ways, to deal with the magnification and amplification that happens when you bring into that vortex whatever it is, positive or negative, that you bring in with you, so that you can let go of those things that are out of alignment and incorporate more of the things that are in alignment with who you prefer to be. Now, the Sedona vortex connects to a very powerful portal in the area known as Upheaval Dome in Utah. This is a powerful portal that is very large, that allows for what we might call a lot of traffic from other dimensions, other realities, to pass through or arrive in to your reality. This is why it encompasses the area also known to you lately as Skinwalker Ranch, and why there are many things happening there that are now being discovered by all of you. These portals are available to those who understand how to set up the right frequency to enter them, to pass through them. And you are beginning to discover that the frequency of 1.6 gigahertz is what allows you, when broadcasting, to get a feedback signal that the portal has opened. That is what the feedback signals represent. The opening of the portal, when you hear the feedback, you know the portal is open. So projecting that particular frequency and getting the feedback is what lets you know that the portal is allowing passage. Upheaval Dome is an impact crater that has created certain magnetic effects in that area that allows the electromagnetic portal to exist between dimensions. And when we talk about the idea of ringing the bell, it is what we have just described as sending out the proper frequency and getting the feedback, getting the ring, making the bell ring, the portal ring, so that you know it is open and gives you access to other levels of consciousness, other dimensions of reality. And therefore, though it hasn't yet been tried, but will be tried in the future, the idea of taking that frequency and projecting it in the Sedona vortex will also create many surprises and many experiences that will allow you to continue to compile more data, more understanding, and more information about how these vortices work and what they can allow you to connect to. Thank you for your synchronous ringing of the bell. And so, not only can you do this with technology, as demonstrated in your programs, but you can also do it within yourselves by forming a gathering around Bell Rock and allowing yourself in your imagination to create the Om vibration and then projecting it physically outward. Om. But knowing while you're doing that you impart to it from your imagination the 1.6 gigahertz frequency. Let the Om carry the frequency into Bell Rock, penetrating it and adding to the electromagnetic vortex that it is the heart of. So just by doing your normal oming, your normal meditative chanting, but by imagining and projecting the 1.6 gigahertz frequency into it, you can begin to experience some changes, some frequency changes, some feedback changes, some feelings, some shiftings, some experiences, especially in opening up the portal to your dream time and seeing what happens in your dream time that allows you to begin to connect etherically with many other dimensions, many other beings, and then let it slowly leak into your physical reality, becoming more and more lucid in the physical reality dream. So it is a process, but you can begin it by chanting around Bell Rock and imagining that frequency being projected into the stone and into the electromagnetic vortex. Do you understand? Yes. All right. Now, if you look at the configuration also of the natural formation of Bell Rock, you can see that even though it doesn't actually appear to be similar, if you were to take, let us say, the Great Pyramid of Giza and overlap it on Bell Rock, you would see some similar proportions. The idea is wide at the base, narrow at the top, in precisely the appropriate angles to create the vortex, because it is mimicking, in a sense, in a round formation, the same idea that the pyramid creates as well. So it is like having a circular pyramid of natural stone that is electromagnetically activated. So you can consider Bell Rock to be a type of pyramid, though it doesn't look anything like the pyramids you are used to. But it functions in a similar way. One thing that can also be done to amplify your experience is in the meditations we have talked about, in the chanting, and in the projection of that frequency in that area. You may find if you relax into that vibration, it may actually promote the idea more easily for you of lucid dreaming and astral projection. Because this is the idea behind the Great Pyramid of Giza. In the king's chamber and in the stone coffer, the priests would create this chant, this vibration, this frequency, which would allow them more efficacy at astral projection. So they could go into other dimensions, bring back information that would aid and assist the population. This is something that the ancient Atlanteans taught them and was incorporated into their Egyptian civilization after the fall of Atlantis. So Bell Rock can perform much the same function, though you won't necessarily find the same kinds of inner chambers. The idea of getting it to resonate according to the frequencies we have just described will allow you to tap into the vortex in a way that can promote, again, more efficacy with the idea of lucid dreaming and astral projection by doing the chant that we have just described. Also, you may find that doing different kinds of frequencies with the chanting will allow you to tap into different beings, different levels of consciousness, not only of your own consciousness, but different realities, different beings that inhabit different levels, different realities. And by doing the chant and doing traditional American Indian chanting and projecting that same frequency, you may find that you will be able to evoke the dimension or the in-between dimensions that house the Kachinas. The Kachina spirits are very strong in the Sedona area in terms of their coming and going from the vortex. You do not always see them. They are usually invisible to you. But you can allow your senses to stretch to the point where you can begin to perceive them and their comings and goings and their connection to the land and their connection to the energies of the people of the land. By doing the chanting that is most traditional, with the drum chants of the American Indian people in the area. By setting that up, you can increase the vibration and frequency of the vortex, as has been demonstrated in the Skinwalker Ranch area with native drumming, causing an increase in the frequency of the energy of the vortex. Thus, you can replicate that here as well, very strongly, and connect to the idea of the Kachina spirits, and allow your senses to be able to begin to perceive them, first perhaps as transparent forms, and then perhaps as spheres of light, and then perhaps in the archetypal form in which the American Indians presented them. The idea then is to understand that you have in your midst a kind of a telephone to many different dimensions. With the right input, you will get different kinds of output. With the chanting and the frequencies in your imagination and inputting those frequencies into the vortex, you can call forth and develop more relation to not only your own higher mind and your spirit guides and spirit family, but also many dimensions of beings that are more than willing to communicate with you and together form a new understanding, a new reality, using the portal to accelerate and transform your reality and to accelerate the evolution of humanity, and also make connections to many of the extraterrestrial sources, and in particular, in this day and age, to make connections to the hybrids that will eventually come to live among you. Sedona is, and the outlying areas of Sedona in general, though we will not name a specific point, is one of the candidates for the sanctuaries for the hybrid children. But out in nature, not in proximity at first to the idea of the civilization, to the town itself, but in the surrounding nature, among the trees, where the rivers are, where the water flows, where the trees grow, where the wind blows, where the animals gather, where the crows crow, where the coyotes howl. In that natural environment, a sanctuary will naturally form, and the hybrid children will gravitate to it. So what you are doing in the chanting and the inputting of the frequency is creating the vortex of Bell Rock to ring like a beacon, to attract them to the area, to let them know that you are willing to set up that frequency for them, to encourage them to adopt the area in the surrounding natural zone as one of the sanctuaries, allowing yourself to create that frequency of compatibility vibrationally for them, and a stronger connection between your energy and their energy. So in this ringing of the bell, there are many functions that can aid and assist in accelerating your energy and accelerating the evolution of humanity, with the idea of the invitation and arrival of the hybrids that will eventually come to live among you, in order for Earth to evolve toward what we have called the sixth hybrid race. We thank you for allowing us to share this information with you, and we encourage you to go to the area, do your chanting, do your drumming, and do the vibrational inputting that will allow the vortex of Sedona to become a calling card and an invitation, ringing true to those who will come, to those who will once be among you one day. We thank you for allowing us to share this, and in return for this gift, I ask you now, in what way may we be of service to you? You may continue, if you wish, with your dialogues and questions.
All right, let's say good day to you this day, good time. How are you all? We will begin this communication in the following way. We understand that this day he wishes to speak about the idea of excitement in your 21st century and manifesting your dream. So first, let us discuss briefly why it is so important to talk about the idea of excitement. First of all, let us make sure you are all comfortable. Can you all hear well enough, or do you need the speakers to be louder? You're all hearing all right?
They are nodding.
All right. Then let us begin with a reminder for some and new information for others of what is so important about the idea of excitement. Perhaps our definition of excitement will also explain why it is so important. Many people on your planet understand that it is a good thing to be happy, a good thing to be excited. It feels good, but they may not understand exactly how important that experience is. It is important for the following reason. Here is the definition. Excitement is the physical experience of your highest, most true frequency of energy. Now, this is also synonymous with the idea of unconditional love, but we are speaking about that particular physical sensation that allows you to feel very energized. It is the frequency of energy within you that allows you to know you are most harmoniously aligned with your true natural self. This is why it is so important in realizing your dreams to always follow the path of highest excitement. Many people on your planet wonder, what is my path? What is my purpose in life? And when they talk about this idea of path and purpose, they are usually talking about what kind of thing can I do, or job can I find, or how can I express my path. There are many, many, many different ways that you can, of course, express your path and your purpose in life. But people, of course, on your planet wonder, well, what is the best one for me? What is my destiny? So we would like to remind you at this moment that your path, your purpose, your destiny can actually be expressed in many different ways throughout the course of your entire lifetime. And what this means is that your fundamental basic purpose in life is to really just be who you are as fully as you possibly can be. Everyone exists for a reason. There are no accidents in creation. Creation did not make pointless creations that have no purpose. Everything and everyone that exists has a reason for existing and fits in with everything else that exists. But the idea of discovering your purpose and your destiny is really the process of discovering who you are. What is the natural state of your being? Excitement is the tool, is the beacon, the guiding light that allows you to stay aligned with your natural true self. It is the energy that will allow you to discover most easily who you are, what your purpose for being is. Though you may not always immediately understand how it is working, if you remain within the idea of excitement in everything that you do, you will not only have an ecstatic life yourself, you will most beneficially help others as well. For only by being your true self and being in your full power are you then really capable of supporting everyone else and supporting the whole of creation. If you are not being your true self, it is more difficult for you to be of assistance or help to anyone else. Now, of course, fundamentally, you are always being of service to everyone around you, just by being in existence. But if you are not living your joy, if you are struggling and suffering, then all you're really reflecting to other people is the experience of struggling and suffering. Now, it is certainly possible for other people to look at you when you are struggling and suffering and still learn something positive for themselves, and so that way you may still be able to help them even while you are suffering. But the point is there really is no reason why you should have to struggle and suffer in order to be of benefit to others and yourself. We are not saying that your life will no longer contain challenges, but challenge is good. Attracting challenges in your life, puzzles to figure out, will stretch you both in the idea of mind and in the idea of spirit. But you have all arrived at a place now in your history, what you now refer to as the 21st century, where suffering and struggling is no longer necessary for you to learn your lessons in life. You have spent, as a species, thousands and thousands of years feeling like you are in the dark, struggling and suffering and in conflict. But now, at this point in your history, you have experienced and played out almost every possible negative suffering scenario imaginable on your planet. There are almost no more negative scenarios left to experience. Throughout many different lifetimes, you have all lived every kind of negative scenario imaginable. The reason that you are seeing so much accelerated conflict on your planet at this time in certain areas is because you are now attempting to bring all of that up to the surface and get it out of your system. You are doing this now faster and faster and faster, getting it all out in the open so that you can all look at what is going on in the world and finally decide, is this the way we prefer the world to be from this point forward, or do we prefer something different, something harmonious and joyful? So while there are still many people on your planet playing out the last remnants of the idea of negative scenarios, there are also now many, many more people on your planet starting to look around and say, we can do something in a different way, a new way, a joyful and creative way. But because people are coming out of old patterns, old habits, old ideas, sometimes even though they know they want to do something in a new way, they may be puzzled as to exactly how to go about it because it's such a new idea. In fact, the old ideas are sometimes so strong to you that many people on your planet even have difficulty imagining what a life of joy and creativity would really be like. Some people on your planet even have trouble imagining what a whole planet functioning in harmony would be like. In fact, some people on your planet have so much trouble imagining what it would be like, they almost cannot even believe that it would be possible to have a whole planet of harmony or even an individual life of perfect harmony. And so one of the most important things we must discuss today is not only the idea of acting on your excitement to fulfill your purpose, but also really strongly understanding how to get in touch with old beliefs and transform them so that you know beyond a doubt that it is possible to live a life of joy and creativity. Please understand that these things we will be discussing in this communication today really are powerful energy tools of change. They're not just nice sounding ideas. They actually have power when you use them properly. Many people on your planet who are interested in what you call your New Age movement or age of spirituality constantly talk about the idea of how it would be nice if this would change or that would change, but they don't really have a fundamental understanding of the necessary tool that allows the change to happen and be permanent. But this is why it is so important to us to share with you ideas that you can take with you from this communication and use in your everyday life to really make the changes you want and know that the changes will stick, that they will last, and you can make more changes when you want to. Our people will be given the greatest gift when we know that we can interact with you more as equals rather than you needing us so much to make you feel powerful. When you feel powerful yourselves, then we will have done our job properly. So the purpose of us doing this job is to put ourselves out of a job. Then the job will be successful. We can interact as equals in the same way. So let us begin with a discussion of understanding what beliefs are all about and how your beliefs create your reality so that you can then create the reality you prefer. Some of you have heard these ideas from us before, but we will take them to greater detail and depth in this communication so that you can really lock them in and use them and make them your own. Many of you are becoming more familiar with the idea that you create your reality and that this happens through your belief system. But still, many of you have not really made it your own. You don't breathe it every moment of every day. It's not yet feeling completely natural for you to live this way. So let us work together so that you can really make this your own understanding of the idea and you can begin to use it automatically without even thinking. And of course, one of the reasons why it will become more and more automatic is because the more you do it, the better you will feel and the more you will want to continue to feel that way. And the more you use these tools and the more automatic that state of excitement becomes, pretty soon there will come a time when you can no longer imagine living any other way. You will look at your life in the past when perhaps you felt you were struggling and suffering, and that will seem to be a far distant dream that has nothing to do with who you are anymore. Then you can, once truly awake, live your life to the fullest in joy and ecstasy. So, before we talk specifically about the energy of excitement, let's talk now about the idea of the belief system within your personality. Let us begin with the basics. You are an unbroken consciousness. You are one spirit. But when you choose to experience the idea of physical reality, then certain things have to be created in order for your spirit to have that experience. You must create what is called the physical personality. This is similar to the idea of when you want to go scuba diving, you must bring certain apparatus with you, such as a diving suit and a breathing apparatus and a mask to be able to see clearly underwater. So as a metaphor, there is your spirit hovering above physical reality, just like a diver would hover above the surface of the water, looking down into it, wondering, I wonder what's down there. And so the spirit, looking into physical reality, saying, I wonder what's down there, I think I'll go see, must then create the proper tools to be able to function down in physical reality vibration, which is a little bit lower than the spiritual level in frequency. Now, of course, from time to time, spirits can pay short visits to physical reality, but this is the same idea as simply jumping in the water without scuba equipment and holding your breath for a while before you come back up. But in order to really stay down there and explore for a long time, you have to have the breathing equipment, the proper equipment to be able to see and appreciate what is going on under the water or down in physical reality. And just as water is denser than air, the vibration of physical reality is, in a sense, denser or thicker than non-physical spirit reality. And just as you move more slowly in water than you do in air, things move a little bit more slowly in physical reality than they do in spirit because the vibration is lower. The spirit must lower its frequency down into a slower vibration of time and space. And in order to explore time and space, physical reality for a long time, you must create the proper apparatus, that is the body and the personality. So then as you generate the idea of transforming into a body, you simultaneously then form, as the body grows, the concept of the structure called physical personality. And for the general theme that you know you are choosing to explore in physical reality, you will in a sense then choose generally the people that you will be with, your parents, and the general time of your birth, so that the frequency of physical reality at that moment will, in a sense, create an imprinting upon the body that generates a specific kind of personality. And this is the basis of the concepts that you call astrology and so forth, because what is happening is that when you physicalize, it's like crystallizing a moment in the totality of space-time, and that is like being able to read a general blueprint of the kind of personality structure you have frozen in order to explore the theme in physical life. In that sense, the personality is analogous to the idea of an ice crystal. It has a certain kind of beautiful form and structure. It has a pattern that can be understood and appreciated and read. Now, the unique thing about the personality, however, is that while it is, in a sense, frozen in one way, it is very fluid in another way. In order to explore physical reality, you must maintain the basic components of personality, which is thoughts and emotions and beliefs. But because you are never disconnected from the spirit that you have the ability to constantly rearrange the pattern of the ice crystal of your personality, to change the beliefs, the emotions, and the thoughts. So as long as you choose to remain physical, you will maintain the general framework of a personality, but you will constantly change the content of the framework. And the framework, once again, is beliefs, emotions, and thoughts and action in that sense, or behavior. The first level of the personality is beliefs. They are definitions that you are taught to believe are true about reality. It is very important how that is phrased. We are not saying that beliefs are true representations of reality. We are simply saying beliefs are what you have been taught to believe are true representations of reality. Without a belief or a definition of reality, you cannot experience physical reality. Conversely, everything that you do experience of physical reality stems from what you believe or define to be most true about physical reality. From this idea, you can clearly understand that if you want to change the experience of physical reality, what you need to do then is change the belief, change the definition you have of reality. Now, please understand that when we go into detail about how to change your definition and how to change your beliefs, we're talking about how to do this more consciously, because you're already doing this all the time. If you were not changing your beliefs and definitions all the time, you would not have an experience of time and space in physical reality. Nothing would seem to change at all. So you are really very, very rapidly, on an unconscious level, changing your definition of reality all the time in order to have a sense or an experience of continuity and motion and the change of time. And by bringing a certain aspect of this ability into more conscious awareness,
we will say good day, and we will begin this transmission with the reminder that it is titled Fairy Tales for Grown-Ups. And we remind you that in our last transmission, we spoke about using the idea of a spinning wheel to create the illusion of a spoke freezing in place to indicate what it is that you are focusing on at that moment that you need to look at, whether it be a representation of your passion or a representation of a belief system that might be required for you to look at. But in this transmission, even though it will involve spinning wheels as a symbol again, this will be quite different, because what we are doing here is examining two particular fairy tales in your culture, Sleeping Beauty, Rumpelstiltskin, both of which contain the symbol of a spinning wheel for different reasons, different purposes. But the idea of this particular transmission is to help guide you in your discernment in stories, in fairy tales, and the stories you tell yourself, to be able to tell the difference between what is really a positive belief system and a negative belief system, because many of you may have an idea of what the fairy tales, Sleeping Beauty and Rumpelstiltskin, may represent, and what elements within them may be positive and or negative. But you may be surprised to find that there may be some things that are the opposite of what you may think. So before we dive into the idea of being able to tell the difference between the positive and negative belief systems that these fairy tales represent, let us give you a very brief recap so that each of you can remember, because it may be a while since you've heard them, what these fairy tale stories are actually all about. In Sleeping Beauty, you have the idea of a great feast that was arranged because of the birth of the princess to the king and queen. But there was only so much room at the table for all the guests that they chose to invite, some of which were the fairies of the land. And so, because there was one fairy that they didn't necessarily feel had the best of intentions, the best of energy, they chose to not invite that particular fairy. But that particular fairy heard about the feast nevertheless, and showed up at a point where many of the other fairies had already bestowed their magical gifts upon the princess, except for one. And so, upon her arrival, this fairy, being very offended at not being invited, chose to put a curse upon the princess, and said that on her 16th birthday, she would prick her finger on the needle of a spinning wheel and die. Now, everyone was very distraught, of course, at this, and after that fairy left, the final fairy, who had not yet bestowed her gift upon the princess, could only bestow just enough to change the curse to the point where the princess would not die, but would simply fall asleep until such time as someone would come along and with a kiss awaken her. That is the basic gist of Sleeping Beauty. Rumpelstiltskin, a little bit different, where a poor man had a daughter, and it was time for this man to pay taxes, but not having the money, the poor man promised his daughter to the king instead, promising that she had the magical ability to spin straw into gold. Well, the king could not pass this up, and so he took the daughter to the castle and locked her in a room with straw and a spinning wheel and said, "If you will spin this straw into gold, you will gain your freedom and I will marry you." Now, the princess in that sense, or the girl, not yet a princess, was beside herself because she had no ability whatsoever to spin straw into gold. Nevertheless, at some point, the door creaked open, and a little elemental man named Rumpelstiltskin came into the room without revealing his name and said, "I can help you. I can spin this straw into gold. But what will you give me in return?" And so the princess had some jewelry. She handed over. The little man accepted and got about spinning the straw into gold. The next day, when the king arrived, he was astonished to see a room full of gold instead of straw. But now the king got a little bit greedy and said, all right, well, I'm not going to free you yet, not going to marry you yet. I'm going to put you in another room with more straw that you will spin into gold. And so again, the girl was distraught, but once again, the little man showed up and said, I will do this for you again, but what will you give me? And again, the girl only had at this point left her ring, which she gave to the little man, who then set about spinning the straw into gold. And again the next day, the king was astonished to find even more gold than before. And being a little bit greedy still, said, all right, well, you have to do this one more time to prove your worth. And so I will now fill the room with straw, which you will spin into gold. And so again, the girl was very distraught. And the man showed up, but the girl said, I have nothing left to give you. And so the little man thought about it and said, you do. For when you marry the king, you will bear a child, and it is the child that you will give to me. Being desperate, the girl agreed. And so the little man spun all of the straw in the room into gold, and the next day the king showed up and was absolutely amazed at a room full of gold, and on the spot freed the girl and promised that he would marry, and so they did. And as time went by, the girl had a child that she loved dearly. And one day, once again, the little man showed up and said, it is time to honor our agreement. You must give me your firstborn child. Now, the girl had grown very, very fond of this child and did not want to do that. The little man insisted, you must. It is our agreement. And so he said, I will go away and come back, but at that time, you must say goodbye to your child, for I will take it. Now the girl thought about what to do and thought and thought and thought. And the little man had said before he left, there is only one way that you can break this agreement, and that would be if you can guess my name. And so the girl thought and thought and thought of all the names she could think of, and had many different servants go throughout the land and collect all the names she could think of. And she looked at the list and thought, none of these seem to be the kind of name that this little man would have, this elemental being, this elemental spirit. I am at a loss. Until she thought, I will have one servant go and find him and spy on him, and perhaps he will learn something. And so she sent her servant out into the woods. Eventually, the servant was able to track down the little man, who was dancing in a glade and singing a song in which he revealed his name to be Rumpelstiltskin. And so he went back to the queen and said, this is his name. And so when the little man showed up again, he said, have you guessed my name? And she said, is it this and is it that? Toying with him, for she knew his name. And he said, no, you owe me the child. And finally she said, is it Rumpelstiltskin? And in a fit of rage, the little man disappeared, for she had guessed his name and broken the vow, and was able to keep the child and live happily ever after. Now, in these two stories, there are many different kinds of things that here and there may be positive and negative on their own. But if we examine the concept, first of all, of Sleeping Beauty, while it may seem to be a positive ending, a positive outcome, the prince comes along and kisses her, she awakes, and they live happily ever after, there are many different symbols in here that actually turn this story into something quite different. First and foremost, the idea being that in the original feast, when the child was born, not inviting that particular fairy is symbolic and representative of the invalidation of a negative belief. And because the negative belief was invalidated, then in a sense it amplified and bounced back with the idea of the curse. Now the curse was mitigated by the final fairy into nothing more than a slumber. But this is simply indicative of the fact that you always have an indestructible core. And no matter how many fear-based or negative beliefs that you may invalidate within you or give energy to, you will always have the ability to mitigate them, to soften them out by remembering that they are just beliefs and they have no real ultimate power until such time as you decide that they do. And so when Sleeping Beauty found the spinning wheel, regardless of the fact that they had tried to destroy all the spinning wheels in the kingdom, she found one hidden away, pricked her finger, and fell into a long slumber. And in fact, in the story, everyone in the kingdom fell asleep for 100 years, until such time as 100 years later, with no one aging while they slept, a prince came along, kissed her, woke her up, and she lived happily ever after. However, the symbology here is the symbology of victimhood, succumbing to the idea that you have no power to be able to really defeat this other than the flow of creation and synchronicity, which, as we have said, slightly bends in the direction of positive energy rather than negative, because the balance point between positive and negative, the neutral balance point, still offers you the ability to choose. And if there is nothing else that you do, because the universe then, creation then, is slightly more positive than negative, you will simply start to drift toward the positive. And this is what has happened in this story, is that as she slumbered, there was no actions taken, nothing that could be done until such time, 100 years later, that the flow of creation and synchronicity finally attracted the prince, who then allowed her to awake. But you see, the real symbology here is that, in a sense, Sleeping Beauty died and had to be awoken into a different plane of existence, into a different reality, the spirit realm, than to live happily ever after. So in a sense, the tale of Sleeping Beauty, while it may have bits and pieces that are positive and negative within it, overall is a tale of victimhood and the succumbing to the idea of needing to be rescued and not taking any actions in order to be able to rescue yourself, but only relying on nothing more than the flow of creation and synchronicity to pull you out of it, but not having lived that life at all, and having to go on to another plane of existence in order to continue to experience the idea of your happiness. Whereas Rumpelstiltskin, while having, again, what seems to be many negative aspects to it, the girl is sold off by her father, the girl is trapped in the castle, the girl is forced to do things she's not able to do, the girl is forced to give up things in order to transform in a way that will free her, by relying on the little man, the elemental being, to spin the straw into gold. Nevertheless, even though she may have in some sense exhibited victimhood throughout the story to a certain degree, at a certain point she took charge. She ordered her servants to go find names. She ordered her servant to find the little man and find out his name. In other words, what this represents is the identification of the fear-based belief. She was able to identify it literally by finding the little man's name. And in finding the name, in identifying the fear-based belief and bringing it into the light of her consciousness, she was able to break free from that and let it go and truly take the actions that were required to keep her child, to be the queen, to be free, and to truly live happily ever after by her own actions. Therefore, the overall tale of Rumpelstiltskin, no matter how many negative elements it may have contained, is a positive outcome based on her ability to be self-reliant, self-activated, and actually identify and release the fear-based belief that had beset her up to that point. So within these kinds of stories, and within the stories you may tell yourselves about who you are, what you believe to be true about yourselves in life, while sometimes you may think certain things represent a positive idea, they may actually represent a negative one in the sense of feeling like you must be rescued and you can't do it yourself. That is disempowerment. Whereas, no matter how negative things may seem up to a certain point, the acceptance of your own power and the willingness to investigate those fear-based beliefs will always bring you the information you need to divest yourself of them and truly create by your own actions the freedom that you deserve in life. To claim your own true birthright. To be who you truly are. So, let yourself discern more clearly when you tell yourself stories about yourself which is truly positive and which is truly negative, so that you can always have the ability to be active in your self-investigation, to know yourself, become transparent to yourself, and free yourself with the truth of who you really are.
I want to say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? Once again, we take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for allowing this transmission to occur through this particular window, on this particular day, and in this particular manner. Once again, each and every time you allow this transmission to be translated through this gateway in this way, it affords our civilization an opportunity to experience new facets and new aspects of creation through the interaction of each and every one of you and your unique presentation of creation. So we thank you for this gift of sharing. We would like to begin this transmission this day of your time with the following notion. We would like to call this following subject the eye of the beholder. We have recently discussed with some of you a new understanding, a new perspective to the question that some of you have had for many years. We have heard many of your people ask about when certain kinds of contact with extraterrestrial species would occur more openly, and we have discussed with many of you for many years some of the reasons as to why this is not yet appropriate. We have talked, and we will now recap briefly the idea about how when civilizations are full of people that are operating on a particular wavelength, a particular frequency of energy, and if that frequency is lower in general than the frequency of energy exhibited by another civilization, then to put the higher frequency civilization in contact with the lower frequency civilization before the lower frequency civilization is ready can actually do harm, because when two frequencies are brought together, the higher one tends to overwhelm the lower one in the specific manner of forcing the lower frequency to speed up. And when your frequency speeds up, that is representative of all the things you have hidden within your consciousness, your psyche, all the fears, all the doubts, being forced to the surface before you may be ready to integrate them, to process them at your own pace, in your own way. And so, civilizations that are of higher frequency, who have respect, will not force themselves upon a lower frequency civilization. And by lower frequency, of course, once again, this is not meant in a judgmental way. It is simply that different people, different civilizations are at different places evolutionarily. And it must be, shall we say, cautionary in how these contacts are made, so as not to do damage, so as not to disrupt, but in respectful manner. And we have talked about this many times. Now, we would like to add one more idea, one more understanding of the effect that encountering an alien species would have upon many of you. Many of you already know that when certain occurrences, life-changing occurrences, happen to you, you look at things very differently. Your perspective of life changes. Your perspective of other people changes. This would be greatly amplified were you to suddenly, at this present point in your evolution, come face to face with some species of other civilizations. In seeing them, in knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are, in your terms, real and present, it would alter not only how you look at things in general, but very specifically would alter how you look at members of your own species. You would never look at humans the same way again. To actually encounter a member of another race from another civilization changes your perspective about all life, all consciousness, especially because of the difference in frequency that you would be subjected to in encountering another species. And when you turn back around and look at your own species, you will not see them the same way. You will not necessarily even see them as real. You will no longer be able to relate to them in the same way. And while there is nothing intrinsically wrong with this, when done without proper preparation, it can be to some degree damaging in your outlook in life. Damaging because you will no longer feel that you fit in, even more so than many of you feel that way now. And the idea is that would literally be alienating to many of you. It is important, from our perspective at least, in our opinion at least, that you remain cohesive even in the changes that you make. For even as many of you change and even as many of you feel very different from other members of your society, you are still of a kind. You are still of an ilk. The difference we are talking about, the profoundness of the change, would be something beyond what you are used to experiencing. You would truly, in many ways, be alien. And it would not serve you to not be able to fit in certain ways at this time. Until such time as the integration within each and every one of you has taken place to a greater degree than it has right now, until that time, then, physical contact is held back on the part of most species. We know that there are, of course, certain species that are in connection, are in contact with your species, but these have very different agendas, are interacting for very different reasons, and are of very different vibration than many of the species we are talking about that have higher resonances. So do not be impatient for this. The most important thing is to make contact with yourselves, to integrate yourselves, to recognize the differences, to cherish them, to amplify and expand in creative ways upon the diversity within your own culture before you are ready to take the step in learning how to integrate the differences and diversity in other cultures altogether. So we simply offer to you this additional reason for why there is specificity in the timing of when these things will occur. It will not really be so very long. Again, as we have said, the beginnings of some of these encounters will occur within the next decade and will increase and accelerate thereafter as certain changes occur in your society. The point is to simply live your life, not detach yourself from earthly concerns, but recognize that you chose to be where you are for your own reasons, and the idea is to get in touch with those reasons so that you can help not only change yourself, but help others change in beneficial and positive ways according to their own desires and choices, so that in so doing and cherishing your own diversity, you then create the blending and the integration necessary to be capable of presenting yourself as a cohesive planet to other cohesive planets. Then and there will contact be made. Only when you meet us halfway. Until such time, this is the nature of contact now, in that people have been, so to speak, trained to allow conversation and communication and transmissions to occur in this and other similar manners, so that we can have an exchange of ideas without forcing our presence upon you, so that we can leave it up to you to decide whether or not you believe we are real. For we do not care if you believe we are real. We know we are real. The thing that matters is whether you believe in yourselves. That is the most important thing we can impart to any of you. You must believe in yourself, first and foremost. For each of you is a unique aspect of creation and worthy of absolute, full recognition of that fact and unconditional support in that knowing. We thank you for allowing us to share this point of view with you this day of your time. And once again, in return for the gift that you are giving to our world, in allowing us to share in this exchange with you, I ask in return, in what way may I be of service to you now? I want to say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? Once again, we take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for allowing our civilization to communicate to your civilization through this window and in this way and at this time. Once again, each and every time you allow such an interaction to take place, it expands our understanding of that many more ways that the infinite has of expressing itself. So we thank you for this gift of sharing. We would like to begin this transmission with the following notions. First of all, we would like to take advantage, to some degree, of the synchronicity of the image that is depicted upon the channel shirt. That which you have in your now mythology called in your reality the Men in Black. The idea is really threefold, at least those portions we will discuss this day of your time. There is more to it than this, but we will cover three ideas regarding what you call euphemistically the Men in Black. Number one, many of you have understood that there is some connection to what you call the extraterrestrial or UFO phenomenology regarding these mysterious individuals. And this is true. In one sense, in order to maintain certain ideas of secrecy within the extraterrestrial agendas that deem that secrecy is important, they concocted what would be called a screen presentation. This is, in other words, an archetypal projection, a representation of themselves in very fundamental and basic appearance, what you call black suit, black car, the things you understand in your reality to be nondescript, for the specific purpose in that getting your consciousness to focus on a nondescript representation of an individual in a black suit, in a black car, mysterious, will actually help to activate certain centers in your brain, certain centers of your consciousness experience of reality, to allow you to see what they want you to see, to allow you to know what they want you to know, and to forget what they want you to forget. It is, in a sense, a type of hypnotic tool in the same way that your society uses such things as pendulums or shiny objects to get you to focus, or movement of hands to get you to focus on a particular point of view so that you can be more suggestible. The presentation by certain extraterrestrials of the figure is archetypal. The Men in Black is a tool for getting you to focus in a certain area of your consciousness, in a certain area of your brain where it is more easy to allow you to forget certain things they don't want you to know. Now, it's not working so much anymore, because the more information that has leaked into your society regarding such things as extraterrestrial contact has made some of the concepts of Men in Black obsolete as a tool for erasing memory. However, this brings us to the second idea, and that is that in knowing that this was going on and being done by certain extraterrestrials from time to time to create the idea of secrecy, certain factions of your own government picked up on this and thought it was, as you would say, a nifty idea. A few, therefore, not many, but a few such cases of reports of what you call Men in Black are then simply nothing more than the idea of your own government agencies attempting to try it out as a part of what you would call their own mind control programs to see if they could utilize this to their benefit. It was not completely successful, primarily for the reason we have already given, in that by the time they initiated it, most of the effect of that presentation by the part of extraterrestrials had worn off on your society and really no longer had an impact on most of you to whom they presented themselves. The third idea, which has also manifested in physical reality from time to time, is literally purely the archetypal level, not involving physical extraterrestrials, not involving any physiological beings from your own governments, but literally that your collective consciousness from time to time, in that it has become incorporated in the collective mythology, has literally created a physicalized manifestation, or what would appear to be a physicalized manifestation of such entities,
when and where there is doubt and fear about the things that are connected to extraterrestrial information or secrets in general, your collective consciousness can be called forth by an individual in a sufficient amount of fear, and they can actually perceive such individuals as men in black appearing before them to reflect and exemplify the fear they feel within themselves about the secret that they may all of a sudden have become privy to. So, A, you have the literal extraterrestrial presentation that was utilized as a suggestion tool. B, you have your own human representation of this idea. But you also have, C, the archetypal collective consciousness representation of what you have come to know now in your mythology as the Men in Black. We would now also like to comment on something that is an extension of what we have commented on also recently, and that is that in a recent transmission, in a recent conversation, we suggested that in this now upcoming shift time, your present month of what you call March and beyond, there would be, in this time, many, many things that would begin to shift very rapidly, especially with regard to sociological ideas, economic, religious, so forth, ideas. And now we would like to underline and underscore this idea we spoke about by pointing out, as many of you have already probably guessed, that the recent announcement on your planet of your ability to now clone individuals is one such shift, or a part of one such sociological change in your society. For now you have a great degree of discussion and investigation. Now that you know it is possible for you to do something which for some time in your minds has been the product of science fiction, but now no longer is, it is one of the things that will very rapidly change your world and your outlook on reality and bring up lots of discussion on many different things that perhaps even only 1 month ago were not really strong considerations for reality. But now you know that you have arrived at a threshold of understanding and technology that allows you to discuss what you call the positive and negative, the pros and the cons of this issue, because now it is available to you. And even more so, you surprised yourself by finding out exactly how simple the technique actually is. Anyone in any kind of a laboratory now on your planet that is in any way, shape, or form equipped with even minimal technology can do this. Cloning exists in your reality now. Science fiction has become science. It is a new reality for you to consider, and there will, in the upcoming March month, and in the months especially accelerating toward your summer, be many more such new ideas beginning to break into the mainstream of your collective consciousness and will have to be being dealt with as reality instead of speculation. So, for what it's worth, congratulations on arriving at this point and giving yourselves even that much more to think about. Once again, we take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for allowing our civilization to communicate with you this way, through this window at this time. And we ask... We, last night of your time, also mentioned that we would be speaking about the idea of the transformation itself, the accelerating wave of collective consciousness that many of you have intuitively recognized reaches a critical mass threshold in and around your cycle that you call 2012. This simply represents the idea of crossing into critical mass, where you have the potential for total positive reality. You have that now, of course. But after 2012, the idea of positive energy will be so much more available to so many more of you that if you should choose to ride the crest of that wave, the leading edge of that wave of consciousness, you can accelerate so rapidly, you can attract to yourself so rapidly the things that are representative of your passion, of your joy, without knowing in any way, shape, or form how these things could have happened, beyond reason, beyond logic, that again, your life will become literally so dreamlike, it will be at first dizzying and disorienting until you get used to it. Literally, you'll be walking through life like it's a dream, marveling at the miraculous synchronicities that just are popping up as a matter of course. Yes. when you ride the leading edge of the wave of consciousness. If, however, you choose to continue to compartmentalize your physical mind and make it responsible for being in charge, and have to know the how, and have to know the why, and have to know all the details before you'll be willing to believe that the higher self can simply bring this to you, then you will, by choice, position yourself somewhere down the line from the leading edge, in some of the eddies and currents and backwashes in the wake of the leading edge. Now, it doesn't mean that you cannot find benefit in those locations, in those gradations of frequency behind the leading edge. But wherever it is you position yourself, you simply have to understand the effect you create will be absolutely directly commensurate with where you have positioned yourself, and it will not be any more than that. By definition, it cannot be any more than that. As an analogy, your visible spectrum of light. You understand that in the visible spectrum of light, red is a low frequency, the lowest visible frequency you can perceive with your eyes. Violet is the highest visible frequency you can perceive with your eyes in general. We understand many of you are beginning to stretch these boundaries, but for the purpose of this illustration, let's just stick with the common labeling of this visible spectrum. Now, you know, if something exists on the frequency of violet light, it's at a very high level of frequency, very high level of energy. And it will experience the things that go hand in hand with that level. If something chooses to exist on the other end of the spectrum, in the red frequency, it will be functioning at a lower wavelength, a slower wavelength, a lower vibration, and will only experience the things that are commensurate with that level in the spectrum. It's all energy, it's all light, it's all the same stuff, as you say, but the difference in gradation of the vibrational frequency will ultimately determine what is capable of being experienced on that level. If you're operating at a certain wavelength toward the lower end of that spectrum, you will only perceive red. Only! You will never perceive violet at that end of the spectrum. If you are operating at the violet end of the spectrum on a high frequency level, you will only perceive violet. You will never perceive red at that end of the spectrum. Ever. So, the leading edge of the wave of your collective consciousness on this transformation, you can live there and ride the crest, or you can allow yourself to float back into the wake. Somewhere in there will be vibrations that will be representative of whatever degree you are willing to allow your belief system to take hold. So, you must understand that if you do that, there are consequences to that. The consequence being that you can only perceive what is directly commensurate with the level you're on, and nothing else. Nothing lower, but nothing higher. But you are all capable of choosing to ride the crest, the leading edge. All right. Now, when some of you consider this, you get scared. It's going too fast for me. I might fall off. I might crash. I might smack into a brick wall. As if suddenly one would appear. Of course it will if you create it. But again, understand that if you create that brick wall, that's an indication you are no longer on the leading edge. Brick walls do not exist, by definition, on the leading edge. They only exist back down the line, in the wake. In one of the eddies, in one of the currents, that is representative of belief systems that there are such things as brick walls. But if you're truly, truly, truly riding the leading edge, truly, as you say, surfing the crest, then you will understand that just like being on the top of the mountain, you have a clear and unobstructed view of everything in front of you. And you ride that wave right into ecstasy. Ride the leading edge of the ecstasy. Allow yourself the opportunity to know you can. You don't have to choose to. But then if you don't be surprised by what is commensurate for that level. It's completely up to you what to lock onto, what to believe, what to align with, what to associate yourself with. You can, on one hand, say, I understand these concepts. I believe these concepts. I will live these concepts. I am this idea. It can happen instantly, effortlessly, miraculously, wonderfully, joyfully, creatively, lovingly, now, for me. Or you can recognize that you tend, quote unquote, choose to gravitate more to informational sources that confirm your own fear. Well, one should take their time. Well, one has to be careful with this stuff. Now, we understand that there is such a thing as recognizing and honoring whatever belief system you happen to have, and not pushing yourself beyond it if you truly don't believe you can, because that would simply be disastrous. But the idea is to understand and to clearly take responsibility for knowing that if you are aligning with someone that says, well, you can't just go full throttle because you have to be careful that you're not doing this and you're not doing that. You might fool yourself here, you might fool yourself there, and you have to take it easy. If you align yourself with that, that's all well and good. But understand that you are choosing to, and it has nothing at all to do with the fact that you could change your belief and allow yourself to ride the leading edge where things manifest instantaneously. You could. But if you are not, it's your choice. And that's, once again, where you really need to be passionate about being passionate and find out why you are choosing to not ride the leading edge. You will obviously have your own reason for not doing so. Whatever that reason is, whatever you feel is the need for safety, is up to you to determine. But just take responsibility and recognize the responsibility and the choice that you are making for understanding that it's not empirically true that you have to do it that way. It's not empirically true that you have to listen to what that person is saying as opposed to what this person is saying. It's just your choice. Take responsibility for it and then be passionate about finding out why you believe what you do, so that you can, if you are willing, open up to new beliefs that will allow you to move up the spectrum and be in the violet instead of in the red, financially speaking. So, allow yourselves to simply at every given moment recognize what you're doing. Let go of the need to understand the how of it. Because you see, one of the things that stops many of you from having the experiences that were described in the recording is that, for example, when someone says, well, I simply got into the state where I believed I would simply receive more checks. Your physical, logical, reasonable mind goes, well, where the heck are they supposed to come from? I haven't done anything to earn that money. What are you saying? That some stranger just suddenly going to get into his head to pop a check in the mail to me for no reason whatsoever, and I'm just going to go to my mailbox and open a check that comes from a total stranger that's suddenly giving me exactly what I want? Yes! Yes, that is what's being said. Yes, that is one possible way. Yes, that is one possible example of what could happen. But when your logical, reasonable, physical mind going, how does that make any sense? The thing to remind it is that it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to make sense. When you stop needing it to make sense, then you'll make dollars. You have got to give up. You've got to give up your need, your physical mind's need, for everything to have a reason, for everything to make logical sense in the physical, third-dimensional world. If you say you wish to live in fourth-density reality, you must give up the things that are commensurate with the three-dimensional world, such as logic, reason. Not totally. I'm not saying be willy-nilly, fly by the seat of your pants people. I'm saying be aware of the fact that these things are simply points of view, and that you often stop yourselves from allowing these things to come to you because you logic them to death. You detail them to death, literally. You look for a chain of reasonable connection. And believe me, in fourth density reality, there are many chains that to a third density mind are not reasonable or rational at all. You have asked us, how do we travel from star to star? And we have explained to you, we don't travel from star to star. We're simply here, then we're simply there. The logical mind boggles. But how did you get there? How is it possible to go from here to there without stepping on all the places in between? That's not rational. That's not logical. Yes, it is from a different point of view. I'm talking about not abandoning logic. I'm talking about higher logic. The logic that comes from standing on the mountaintop where you can see the entire valley, the entire network, and where it makes sense to you on the mountaintop to say, if you actually go back 3 steps and then to the left, you're actually going to get there more quickly than if you just go straight ahead. Whereas down in the valley, the logical mind self is going, but everyone knows the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and if I go backwards, how can I get there sooner than if I go forwards? How? And the higher self goes, ugh. Because I can see that if you go forward there, the bridge is out, and if you take 3 steps back and go to the left, you go on a parallel road where the bridge is fine. But the point is that the language of the higher self cannot always communicate all those specifics to the physical mind, because the physical mind does not always have the capacity for that kind of translation. The only way that dialogue, most often than not from the higher self, translates to the physical mind is simply suddenly the urge to go back. The urge itself, the intuition itself, in the physical mind is the condensation and capsulization of the entire explanation from the higher self, saying, if you go 3 steps back and then go to the left and go down the parallel road, then the bridge is up. But all the physical mind will get is the tug. That's how it translates in physical reality, because the physical mind is not capable of actually perceiving in the same way the higher self is, and doesn't have to know all the reasons why and how. All it needs to do is know that that's part of who you are, and allow yourself to recognize that that is a communication and to follow it, and that you have received the information that you need, because it's on the same wavelength of your joy, of your passion. Why? Because you say it is. And you flow with it, and thus find out that it is. Or resist it for as long as you want. And keep walking on the same road until you get to the washed out bridge and go, oh, why didn't I listen to my intuition back there? Because you thought you were in charge, smarty. But you're not. Not you alone. You are in charge, but not you alone, physical mind. Physical mind, higher self. That's the you that's in charge. Both aspects of your being is the persona, not just the physical personality self. That's only a part of it. So if you want to know you're in charge, you have to behave like the whole you. And be willing to open up and receive and perceive in whatever way it works for you, the dialogue and the communication coming from the portion of yourself that is the higher self, that has the higher point of view, that has the bigger picture. And be willing to understand it's working on your behalf. It's not going to trick you. It's not going to deceive you. The only thing in your reality that can create the idea of tricks and deception is the physical mind's belief system, not the higher self. Because it is only in physical, three-dimensional reality that you can have the experience of a personality structure that can actually deny its own truth. So any tricks, any deception that you may be afraid of encountering can only actually be coming from the personality aspect that's actually afraid it's going to be deceived. That's the paradox. It can't come from the higher self because that's a bigger picture point of view. And it can clearly see the road. And there is no reason, there is no logic for the higher self to go, yeah, take the left road. Watch and see how my lower self falls into the river. This ought to be fun. Oops, I went with it. You are under the assumption that the higher self is immune from what you experience in physical reality. Incorrect. You are one being, and the higher self will suffer the slings and arrows that the physical mind shoots itself with. You are one being. And it is not detached from you. And it is not immune to the consequences of the physical mind's choices. But because the higher self is closer to the vibration of unconditional love, it will overlook it. Again and again and again and again. Attempting to unconditionally loving you, reminding you, please take the other road, please. Oh, here we go again. It is not immune to the consequences of the physical mind's acts and choices. Do not assume that it is. But it is close enough to unconditional love to forgive it. And to keep giving you the benefit of the doubt. That's the relationship of your higher self. That's its job. To keep on guiding you no matter what. Because it is the vibration of unconditional love that the physical mind often refuses to allow itself to perceive. Through the belief systems it chooses to buy into that deny its truth to itself. So, higher self says, please, 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 please know you are loved. Please, please, please allow me to love you. Please, please, please love yourself enough to know you're not alone in this. That you don't have to do it all. That you weren't designed to. You weren't expected to. Ever. Not once. carry this burden by yourself. Let me be your guide because I am you. Become familiar with that portion of yourself. It is not detached. It is not separate. It is not aloof. It is not in its own realm, unaware of what you are choosing to experience. It will also experience it in its own way. But nevertheless, will always overlook it and always urge you forward, or left, or back, or whatever is necessary. Take a deep breath and let this sink in deeply, deeply, deeply. And allow yourself to at least consider the possibility that you deserve to be on the leading edge of the crest of the wave of consciousness of the transformation. Take another deep breath. Now, in terms of your time frame, what is the time remaining for this? Available to you, take advantage of it. Immerse yourself. And again, please remember how important it is for many of you to act things out. We know, it's no secret to us, that when we have often suggested to many of you that the way to allow yourself greater opportunity for manifestation, greater ability for manifestation, is to actually go and physically act out the scenario that represents your highest joy. And we know, as we said, it's no secret to us that most of you simply don't. Why not? That's the question. That's the true, honest self-assessment that really needs to be investigated. Why not? Because what that simply means is you're not really that passionate about creating that reality. It's not really that important to you. You're not really consumed by it. You're not really obsessed by it. You're not really immersed by it. Why not? That's the question. Why not? That is the most important question you can ask yourself with regard to what you say is your passion. Why am I not more passionate about my passion? Why am I not willing to do the things that everyone says will work? Why not? And that's where you need to come face to face with your own identity, your own physical mind, your own belief systems, your own definitions, your own issues about what it is that you are allowing to define you as a personality. What it is you are choosing to believe in as a personality. Now, you also heard in that recording an idea that we began to discuss last night of your time, and this is the idea of what the job of your physical personality mind actually is and what it isn't. Many of you have been taught to believe that your physical mind is in charge, that it's supposed to control everything and figure out how everything is supposed to happen in order for everything to work. But you heard in the recording, and you heard us say last night of your time, that this is not your job description. Your physical mind is not designed to understand how things happen. It is only designed to perceive how things happened. It is not designed to perceive how things will happen. It is only designed to perceive how things happened. The higher self, that level just above physical reality that is also part of your personal being, is the level of your being that has the ability to understand how things happen. And that's why you heard us say and the secret say, you don't have to worry, you don't have to focus on how something will come about. There is no way for you to know. It's not within the capacity of your physical mind to know that. It's only within the capacity of your physical mind to see how it did occur, but not how it will occur. The knowledge of how it will occur comes from your higher self, not from your physical mind. As we said last night of your time, again, pay attention, very crucial. The higher self conceives. The physical brain receives. The physical personality mind perceives. The physical personality mind does not conceive of anything. The physical mind is not capable of generating an idea. Not one. Not one. Any idea you have ever had has never come from your physical mind. Not one. It can only perceive the result of the idea that was received by the brain from the conception of the higher self. Beginning to understand this relationship will allow you to begin to have a better relationship and an open line of communication with the higher self, and will allow you as physical minds to allow the you that is the higher self to do its job, while the physical mind goes about doing the job it was designed to do, which is to simply focus you in physical reality so that you can perceive and experience the result of what you conceived from the higher self to be representative of your natural truth and joy. So, this knowledge and this understanding and this relationship can allow you to relax and not feel like you have to do so much. It's not your responsibility in that sense as a physical mind to generate these things and figure out how it's all going to happen. As we said last night of your time, we recognize that the physical mind, if it is taught to think it's in charge, can get caught up in the idea of attempting to repeat how something did occur, thinking that what it is perceiving is actually how the next thing needs to occur, when in fact it's not. The idea of attempting to do that will only cause a repetitive cycle, a repetitive loop, that will simply allow you to remain stuck in one particular manifestational level, and it won't advance until you allow yourself to make the leap and let go of how you think it needs to happen and let the higher self show you how it can happen. And then let your physical mind simply receive, perceive how it did happen. So you don't need to carry those bags. You don't need to carry that luggage. It's too heavy. You weren't designed to carry it. If you keep carrying it, you will be exhausted very quickly. You will start dragging. You will say, life is a drag. This doesn't work. I'm not having any fun. Why not? Because you're doing too many jobs. You're not doing the job you were designed to do, only you're also attempting to do the job of the higher self. The higher self is the you that is on the mountaintop, that has the big picture, that has the far view, that can look down at the physical mind in the valley and say, the road is this way. I'm telling you, turn left. I know you think you're supposed to turn right because you think you're in charge, but I'm telling you, turn left. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. You don't have to know how turning left is going to get you to where you want to go. I can see that it is because I'm on the mountaintop. You don't need to know. All you need to do is what? Trust me that I'm telling you the truth. Why would I do anything different? I'm you. When you understand that your higher self is truly an aspect of you, maybe you will be willing to start listening instead of thinking, because your physical mind has been taught to think it's in charge and thus doesn't trust anyone else's 2 cents, instead of thinking that your higher self is trying to deceive you, trying to trick you. can't listen to that guy, that gal. What does he know? What does she know about being down here in the valley? A lot. Because you are also it. And it is also you. What we are simply saying is this is the complete person. Higher self, receiver brain, physical mind, this is the complete persona. And when you compartmentalize yourself, you are not functioning literally, not functioning as a complete person. You are shunting responsibility and the load of the job to only one portion of your personality, only one portion of your persona, the physical mind, and expecting it to take up the slack, which it is not designed to do. You're putting too much weight on it, too much emphasis on it, and it's going to wear the physical you down. To the point where it won't matter what the higher self says about taking this road or that road, you'll just be too exhausted to move. Just can't do it, sorry. The idea is that when you allow yourself to let the higher self pick up that slack by doing the job it was designed to do, your load will be lightened. You will be energized. You will be enlightened. You will feel freer. You will feel like you have more energy than you ever imagined possible. You will be able to move in the direction the higher self is suggesting because you will then not be weighed down by things that you don't have any business carrying with you. And it will make you feel free. And you can run down the road. And that means as soon as you give up the job that isn't yours, things will accelerate. If you think you need to lug all this luggage down the road, it's going to be slow going. Because of many of the definitions and belief systems that many of you have been raised with, that some of those definitions may act as a filtering system that will not really allow you to hear clearly what the underlying fundamental concept here is. We know that many of you get it when we say, follow your passion, act on your passion. And when you have heard others say, follow your bliss, act on your excitement, act on your passion, behave as if. We know that you believe you get that much. But at the same time, in many of the discussions we have had with many of you, we also hear the idea of putting your trust in negativity, of doubting yourself, and saying, well, I am doing my best to follow my passion, but it doesn't seem to be working. Well, I'm doing my best to do this, I'm doing my best to do that. Here's the key that we find, in a sense, is lacking from what the energy is that you're attempting to apply when attempting to follow your passion. It's all well and good to recognize that following your passion, when you recognize it, is the thing to do. But what you may not also understand the importance of is that you also, here it is, are you paying attention? The secret to the secret to the secret. Ears open wide. This is going to sound very simple, but it's very important. When you are acting on your passion, you must also be passionate about being passionate, which many of you are not. When you search for your passion, and then you find something, or you recognize the idea of looking around at any given moment for what excites you the most at that moment, and many of you make an attempt, many of you make an application, many of you do an act, there will still be, according to many of your belief systems, those moments when you go back into, when you choose to go back into many of your negative beliefs, many of your negative feelings, many of your negative thoughts, the things you don't prefer. And this is where it is most crucial to remember that you must also be passionate about being passionate in order to really allow your passion to work. And what this simply means is you don't ever give up. You, at any given moment that you feel yourself waning, look around and use your imagination and create for yourself in that moment an action and a behavior that will take you back into your passion. You must, in that sense, exhibit passion in order to create passion. This is how you bootstrap yourself up the vibrational ladder. To put it in another way, you have heard us say, you have heard them say, when you have a vision, when you have a dream, when you have a picture, when you have a visualization, act it out as best as you can. Do all the things as best as you can to allow yourself to create the frequency of the reality you prefer, even if it isn't literally, physically manifesting yet. This is the willingness to be passionate about being passionate, instead of choosing to feel the idea of the inertia tugging at you from the beliefs you don't prefer. The willingness to act differently regardless of the recognition that you have those beliefs. For example, when you see someone who is truly driven, truly passionate about something, about some career, about some reality, about some idea, you literally see that they are hungry for this manifestation. They are driven. They are obsessed with it. The idea is to become obsessed about being obsessed. To do the things themselves for their own sake of creating passion that will then allow you the opportunity to take that and create the vibrational state necessary to attract what you prefer. So, as we said, here's an example. You have now at your disposal, as we said, this tool called The Secret, and many other tools. Doesn't have to be this, but it's readily available to you all in a very convenient form, so it can be this. But as an example, if you are sitting around looking at your life, looking to be passionate about something, and wondering how to be passionate about being passionate, the idea, again, to recognize is that when you see people who truly are passionate, they are driven at every level, at every stage. So, if it's really that important to you, if it's really that important to you, bless you. If it's really that important to you to create the reality you say you prefer, you will do what it takes. You will do anything. You will be hungry to create a vibration of passion within you all the time. Which means that if you have any kind of permission slip or tool available to you, you will use it as often as you can. You will inundate yourself with it until there can be no other thought, until there is no other choice. To put it in pragmatic terms, if you find yourself one day feeling that your energy is waning, listen, put on your headphones and listen to The Secret again. If the next day you find your energy is waning, put on your headphones and listen to it again. And again, 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 until you get it. Until it sinks in, until it becomes second nature, until it becomes your first thought, until you don't think any other way. Inundate, immerse yourself in all the things that are of that nature, to the exclusion of all other techniques, all other offerings, all other tools. If you're really passionate about something, and passionate about being that passionate, you will do what it takes. You will allow yourself to be completely submerged and obsessed with the very idea of creating the state itself that is representative of the reality you prefer. Now, you don't have to do this. It's up to you. But what we are saying here now, and what we will be repeating throughout this particular transmission, is the recognition that whatever stage, whatever level of frequency, whatever level of commitment, whatever level of drive, whatever level of hunger you decide you choose to have for being passionate is completely what will determine the level of reflection you get, the level of effect you get. So if you say to yourself, I don't have to listen to that again, I already know it, still not working for me, I'm still not happy, still not getting the reality vibration, still not creating the state of being I want, but I don't have to listen to that again, then that's the state you will remain in. When you remember a time when you became passionate about something, anything, you couldn't get enough of it. Every day, every waking thought, you ate it, you drank it, you breathed it in. You looked for anything that had to do with that thing, to learn more, to feel more, to absorb more, to immerse yourself, surround yourself more with that idea. The idea is that in and of itself, that activity in and of itself of immersing yourself in a passionate state is paramount, is very important to the generation of attracting all the things that are then representative of that passion. So if you're not going to be passionate about being passionate, you are going to remove for yourself a very strong stepping stone, a very strong connective link to attracting the things themselves that are representative of your passion. Does this make sense to you? All right. Now we understand, and we know you understand, that even with this knowledge, there will still be portions of your mind, portions of your physical mind going, oh no, that's just too much. So be it. That's your choice. But we are here to tell you that everything you need to know and everything you have learned from us is being restated in this work, and you have it. I'll say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. Thank you. We are engaging in this transmission this day of your time to discuss the principles, concepts, ideas that you have just listened to in this particular collective work that you have labeled on your planet, The Secret. We recognize that many of you have listened to this work. Many more will be listening to this work. This, of course, for many of you familiar with us, will contain many ideas and principles that will be familiar to you. Concepts that we have discussed and many other beings have discussed in a variety of ways for many years. Regardless of what might seem to be slight terminological differences, slight variations in presentations, you can sense, if you pay attention, that the principles are identical. The idea here to pay attention to most is that your civilization has arrived in its evolution of consciousness at a place and a time where a compilation like this, where a work like this can be created, has been created, and is spreading among your people. This simply indicates that you now have at your disposal, at your fingertips, a tool that you have created collectively from your collective consciousness that is designed, as we spoke of last night of your time, to function as a very, very strong and general representative permission slip to allow you to give yourselves permission to become more of who you are. In listening to that recording, the idea is to allow yourself to treat it, if you will, as a meditation, and to allow yourself to recognize what is familiar and to lock onto what is not and incorporate those ideas in one overall comprehensive and cohesive arrangement of these concepts that have been being discussed for many years. We congratulate your civilization for having arrived at a place where now this kind of idea can be produced in your society and can be met with resounding reception, for many, many beings find themselves attracted to this. And you have seen this demonstrated on many levels of your media, where this idea is not only talked about in this format, but you are witnessing many other similar formats coming up from many different people who now are also recognizing these ideas are at the core of how to attract, how to create, how to manifest, how to experience the reality you prefer, that you believe is most harmoniously aligned with the being that you prefer to be, with your true natural self. There are no discrepancies between this work and anything we have said. If you feel that there are, this is simply terminological and semantic. We recognize that they may be using slightly different words, but in your soul and in your heart, you know they are saying exactly the same thing we have been saying for 23 orbits of your time. The idea is that when they say, your thoughts will create this, your thoughts will create that, you know what they are saying is, your beliefs are doing this. Just because they use the word thought does not mean the concept is different. Do not make a difference where none exists. This is our first recommendation. When you listen to these ideas, allow yourself to bring to bear what you know to be true, and apply the interpretation necessary to bring the way they are saying it into focus and into alignment with what you know to be true in principle. It doesn't matter that the words may be slightly different. It's the same idea. Identical. Identical. Now, the one thing that is also additionally wonderful about this is that you now have this available to you on a daily basis. And we would suggest that for those of you that may feel that you find it difficult to, quote unquote, maintain a connection with these ideas, we would suggest that you avail yourself of this tool, every single time, any single time, you feel your focus waning, you feel yourself doubting, you feel yourself creating negativity, you have this now at your disposal in what for you is a technologically convenient form. And here really is the crux of the issue. How interested are you in changing your life? Really? Because again, as was said there, and as we have said for 23 orbits, your behavior, your actions are the key. You have heard in the segment that you just listened to, the individuals say, well, here is the secret to the secret. And they then discuss the idea about state of being, that you can simply choose to be happy for its own sake. And you can. We have said this many times, without needing any other reason to do so. But now we would also like to share with you that there is also another secret to the secret. And if you wish, as an addition to what has been said in your recording, I could say then that there is a secret to the secret to the secret. Now, it's not that this was not said over and over and over again by us in the recording and by many other people. But it was said in ways that may not allow you to recognize it for what it is. It was said in general ways. It was said in illustrative ways. It was said in anecdotal ways. But now we are going to tell you very plainly. There is an underlying concept here that many of you may be missing out on because it hasn't been said plainly. Because we understand that when you drop what isn't yours, things will speed up because now you're not carrying extra weight. Things will accelerate. The paradox here is that because the physical mind has been taught to think it's in charge and has to figure out how everything is going to happen, it actually slows things down, even in the face of wanting things to speed up. It's doing exactly the opposite of what it actually really wants to have happen by taking on too much weight. So by letting that go and allowing yourself to function as the whole being and trusting the how to the higher self and not thinking about it, not worrying about it in the physical mind as to how you're going to get where you know you want to be, then you will allow there to be balance on all levels of your being. Things will flow in that positive direction representative of your natural self because you will be behaving as your true, interconnected, holistic, natural self. This, when people talk about the idea of letting go, when they talk about the idea of surrender, this is what they're talking about. Simply surrender to being who you actually are instead of who you've been taught to think you're supposed to be. This is what you are now realizing in this new age of transformation on your planet. That you're not alone. That the compartmentalized you that you heretofore thought was the totality of your being is in fact nothing but a small piece. And that you actually have other portions of yourself that you could be using, that you could be allowing to carry some of the load with you, but which you have refused to believe can happen because of the way your personality mind, your physical mind has been taught to think about what it's supposed to do, about what its responsibilities actually are. And thus then, once the physical mind has taken on this much weight, has taken on this much more job than it was designed to do, and it feels tired, and it feels stressed, and it feels weighed down, what's the next step after that? Victimization, resentment. It starts dissolving and devolving and breaking down because it cannot carry the load. And once it starts breaking down, thinking this is supposed to be working and it's not, it now feels betrayal from the universe. The universe isn't supporting me. It's not working for me. No, you're not working for you. You're not working for you because you're working too hard for you. Lighten up on yourself. The universe does not expect you to have to struggle. It does not expect you to have to, in any way, shape, or form, suffer. Challenges, yes, but those are exciting. Activity, yes, but that's exciting. Struggle, suffer, no. There is no expectation on behalf of the universe that you should have to struggle and suffer to be yourself. All the struggling, all the suffering, all the doubt, all the fear comes from the misunderstanding of who you are, and thus resisting your natural self because you're afraid to give up that control from the physical mind to the greater self for which it was designed. And when you thus then don't do that and take it all on yourself and start slogging down the road, very heavy under the burden of things you have no business carrying, comes the victimization, the sense of fear, the sense of betrayal, the sense of being alone, the sense of being cut off, the sense of being disconnected, the resentment, the hate, self-loathing, lack of deservability. All these issues stem from not allowing your full self to carry the load. All of it. Bless you. There are, as we said, now many more different, shall we say, permission slips being created by many different people with regard to ideas such as abundance and living your passion and so on and so forth. They are all saying the same thing. Choose whichever one seems to work best for you. But when you make a choice as to what permission slip is most reflective and most representative of what you believe works best for you, then take that information and inundate and immerse yourself in it to the point where you are truly exhibiting a passion for being passionate. And thus then you will find that you will infuse yourself when you give up the weight that doesn't belong to you, and you infuse yourself with a passion for being passionate, the levels of synchronicity will explode in your life to such a degree that you will find staggering, miraculous, enlightening, uplifting, levitating. You will be flying in many different ways. Accelerating, opening up, feeling the love that has always been there, unconditional.